April 18th, 1998.
Ooh, let's dance.
So I head to New York with the family. There was about 22 or so family members and acquaintances that make the journey. The
A lot of Leafs.
Mostly the family of the Leafs. There was a couple, a family of friends of the family that made the journey. I think there was some quid pro quo there. I don't know. I'd have to ask my dad about that one.
Dad, who made the trip?
But we got them all set up in the hotels and everything like that. The day before, we did a cruise tour of the harbor in front of the Statue of Liberty. I'd never seen that before. Curtis Enos, Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning, all of us were on the boat experiencing that. There's some pictures and things like that. Got to experience it with my family. And then I got back, and the night before the draft, Mr. Spanos, Dean Spanos, and my agent, Lee Steinberg, invited me out to a restaurant called the 21 Club. And apparently it's a very exclusive steakhouse restaurant there in Manhattan. And we went there, and I got to meet who would be my eventual owner. But at the time, of course, we didn't quite know. When the meeting and the dinner ended relatively early, I was walking back to the hotel room. Lee confided in me that he was 99.9% sure that Indianapolis was going to take Peyton, and we were thankful. That's what we had really wanted. I played on the West Coast. I had family in San Diego. I just, I saw the gloom of the seasons in a dome in Indianapolis. I didn't have the right things on the brain. I didn't see Marshall Faulk, and I didn't see Marvin Harrison. I saw the beach, the babes, the money, and then I get to play football. I mean, football was the easy part, right? This was all the accoutrement.
I love that word.
And that's what I wanted. So this was about 9:00 at night when Lee Steinberg, my agent at the time, told me. And so I went up to the room, and it was about 9:30 at night. Like, I had complete peace, complete calm. I wasn't nervous about what the next day was going to be. Like, I fell asleep like at 9:30 at night.
Wow.
On Friday night before the NFL draft.
What?
And I woke up early, energized, excited. I went down to where everybody in the family was having breakfast. My grandfather, who has since passed, was sitting there eating breakfast, and he had his oxygen on, and he was wearing the hat that he donned when I was back in college that said, "I am Ryan Leaf's grandpa."
That's awesome.
And I got to sit down with him at the table and eat breakfast with him on, one of the greatest mornings of our family's lives, right?
Yeah, man.
My grandfather came to Montana, homesteaded a cattle and wheat ranch, raised 5 daughters, and now we were in New York, and I was about to be, drafted into the NFL. So the draft kicked off, I think, around 11 Eastern, or maybe a little bit later. I can't remember. It seemed early. It seemed relatively early, but it was. And there were buses waiting outside the Marriott Marquis to take all the families who were there. And I think there was only about 5 or 6 of us invited to the draft that year. And I believe it was Charles Woodson, Curtis Enos, Peyton, myself, and there may have been one other. I can't remember if Andre Wadsworth, who would go third that year to the Arizona Cardinals, if he was there or not. I can't remember. I think he may have been at home. So there may have only been 4 of us there. But anyway, the buses were taking the families and family members all over there. Well, we're on the last bus. The driver's waiting. The bus is being held up, and I finally asked my mom and my dad sitting in the front, why aren't we going? What's going on? And they reluctantly told me, we can't find your brother and your cousin. So my first thought was, okay, they went out. They went out the night before. Now they're both in high school. Okay, they're both at the end of their high school careers. One's 18, the other one's 17. And so I go, okay, they went out. They went out and had a good time. And now what kind of trouble and what nonsense have they got into? And they said, no, they were in the rooms last night before bed and everything. So I'm like, okay, all right. Well, now the clock's ticking and we're 15 minutes late. And I'm looking back in the bus And there's Archie Manning and Olivia Manning and the Manning family, and they're all looking at the Leafs going, yeah, these guys aren't ready for prime time. They're not ready for prime time. And finally, my brother Jeff and my cousin Matt saunter up the steps of the bus and walk onto the bus, and they don't say what's going on. I give him the daggers of an older brother about to be drafted into the NFL draft.
I'm waiting on you.
What are you doing? And they sit down, sheepishly, all this. Well, turns out that they had found somebody who had a line on fake IDs.
Oh, geez.
So they had went to get themselves, they were about to head to college, right? I remember my freshman year, one of my quarterbacks who was a senior gave me his ID that I used when we went to the Alamo Bowl. That's the way it went. Well, they were looking for fake IDs on the day their elder cousin and brother was about to be drafted in the NFL. Anyway, they whisk us off to the Radio City Music Hall, right? And we go down and sit in the green room, and my agent Lee Steinberg tells me to be aware. Once the Indianapolis Colts draft Peyton Manning, the San Diego Chargers are going to take the full 15 minutes. Doesn't mean they're contemplating whether or not they should draft you.
Right.
This is an opportunity on the biggest branding opportunity on TV at the time to have the San Diego Chargers at the forefront for 15 minutes. Okay? So once I knew that, and once I knew that they were going to take up the whole time and it didn't matter, this was a foregone conclusion, I could rest easy. I sat back there when the Indianapolis announced that Peyton was the number 1 overall pick. I applauded, and I was happy that was the direction we were going. I always looked at it as draft picks 1A and 1B. I thought we were the equivalent. We were the same. We would ultimately sign about the same type of contracts. He would get about $250,000 more in signing bonus money. That's about it. So it was really the equivalent. It's the way that Lee Steinberg had negotiated the contract. That these were straight up and down the line. They announced my name. As I talked about earlier, I hugged my mom, I hugged my dad, my family in the room there, Lee Steinberg, and then I walked to the stage. And now I've been informed by my wonderful colleagues here that a respectful, professional handshake to Paul Tagliabue with a little hand on the shoulder. Thank you, sir.
Very professional.
Enjoy your 3-year lease. Thank you for coming by.
Yep. Alex Spanos steps up. They have the 16 jersey for me. Could throw the hat on. My whole family in the audience had those foam Charger lightning bolts.
Absolutely.
Yep. They got those foam ones. They're screaming and yelling, and you can see if you watch the audio. While Alex is giving me, Mr. Spanos is giving me the jersey, he kind of leans in, kind of points up, and he's like, "Is that your family?" And you can hear me say, "Yeah, that's my crazy family."
Fantastic.
Waving those Charger jerseys around. And I think Mike, you have some audio
I
here.
actually have
got it, Mike?
Here we go.
Of what it sounded like.
A little bit of history. Let's go to the commissioner.
With the second choice in the draft, the San Diego Chargers select quarterback, Washington State University, Brian Leaf.
I can't imagine what that feeling must have been like, man.
Sheesh. Doesn't that seem like another life ago?
Yes, it does. It feels like it's another life ago. That's a good way to put it. But there's so much that happened from that moment until where we're at right now, right? It's really kind of come full circle. Mm-hmm. But I think, however you want to view it, it was just very public. Like anything you do, if you're a first round draft pick, everything's public. So, but I do think there's been a ton of life experience in those 24 years that a lot of people have gone through. Just hasn't been newsworthy. And so therefore, probably helped me be and become the person I am today. So hearing Joe Theismann talk about meeting us the night before, and I was ready to get it going. I was sick and tired of all the hoopla. I wanted to play football. I wanted to get that done. That happens. You do a couple big radio interviews. Good friend of Rich's and of the show with Westwood One, Howie Deneroff. He told me this little story when I started working with Westwood One this year, that he was the first interviewer to interview me after I got drafted, after I did the main TV one.
Really?
Yep. And he says he still has the audio somewhere.
Wow.
And I say, I want to hear that. And you do a little media things, and then of course new ownership of Alex Spanos and Dean Spanos. They come, and my father and my agent Lee Steinberg and we get whisked away, all right, into his private jet. But we don't head across the country immediately. We head down south a little bit to Wake Forest to pick up his son, who I am assuming is the same son that now is the president of the Los Angeles Chargers. And after we pick him up, we head west. And our initial plan was to stop in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, full circle here, right? We stop in Las Vegas for the night. I fly my uncles and my uncles from New York who were there at the draft, and then my best friends, my buddies, the ones that were with me from the moment I put on pads, who did everything with me, competed with me, everything, down to Las Vegas that night. And we had the best time. I didn't do a bunch of drinking. I think we did a celebratory toast. I gave those guys about $500 a piece. Said go out and have a blast. We'll gamble. Whoever has the most at the end of the night wins the deal. I think my dad won it because my dad just pocketed the $500 chip and didn't gamble. Smart man. No wonder he's the best businessman in the Leaf family. And the night went, and I just sat around, and I think a few times while we were just sitting in some of the seats there and around the casino, kind of going, what does this look like? But the main story is the plane ride. Alex Spanos, the patriarch of the Chargers, it's a surreal moment. It's a surreal moment, first off, to be in a private jet. My dad and I from Montana are just kind of looking at each other.
Yeah.
And then it progressively gets weirder and weirder and weirder. All right. At one point, Mr. Spanos jumps up and starts scolding my agent about how you need to get this deal done. No messing around, no holding out. I mean, it was contentious and awkward and uncomfortable. And then to kind of, lighten the mood a little bit, Mr. Spanos steps up and says, hey, I don't know if I'm, growing up where I did, and I became friends with Bob Hope, and he pulls out a VHS tape of him and Bob Hope, soft shoeing, tap dancing.
So weird.
On the plane, watching this video, and I'm looking at my father going, where in the hell are we? What are we doing? It was just crazy. Just the whole process. As I assume it just is. It's not anything you would believe is possible when you're growing up, especially in this small town in Great Falls, Montana, or where my dad grew up in a smaller town called Fort Benton, Montana, which is literally maybe, 750 people? I don't know. He goes off to Vietnam for 2 tours, comes home and raised 3 boys, and one of them now is the number 2 overall draft pick in the NFL draft. I mean, he's just kind of like
wild.
And he's around my age that I am now. I thought of him as old at the time. This is I'm 21 years old, and this is my old dad. Well, now if I was at that age and my son is going to these things, and I'm 46 years old here in about a month, I'd be like, this is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm riding and dying on this deal.
Yeah.
And I got up the next morning, not too much sleep, jumped back on that flight and off to San Diego, where we had the introductory press conference. And, my main statement was, and I think it's the one that should be always made when you were a first round draft pick and the people expect so much from you. I flat out just said, hey, I expect to, play here for a long time and have a couple Super Bowl parades in downtown. And that's what they want to hear. And that's what I wanted to accomplish. Of course, it didn't end up that way. Didn't turn out that way. We're here where we're at. But ever since that debacle in San Diego for me, they have not missed on the quarterback position. And they also got a guy named LaDainian Tomlinson out of the deal. So when it's all said and done, Chargers fans, you really should be thanking me for what went down. I definitely thank you for the greatest experience of my life. The opportunity to play for the San Diego Chargers, to be drafted into the NFL, and the experience that went with that.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.